you know, when I was going through that period, I realized that, when you're in your own head and when you're going through all these things, your vision of the world and the world around you change, because the world is really a reflection of our soul, right? It's what we think.
Hello, Spirit Lifters. Good day, and I hope you're doing well wherever you are. In this episode of Spirit Lift, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Dinesh Palipana, who is the first quadriplegic medical intern in Queensland, Australia, and the second person to graduate medical school with quadriplegia in Australia. Dinesh is a senior resident in the emergency department at the Gold Coast University Hospital. He's a lecturer at Griffith University with research interests in spinal cord injury. And Dinesh was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia in 2019. And he is the third Australian to receive a Henry Viscardi Achievement Award. Dinesh, it's a pleasure to have you on this episode of Spirit Lift. Welcome.
Hey, Devin, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
No, it's a pleasure, Dinesh. And I'm just so honored to speak to you on this episode, and I think your story is so inspirational. And let's get right into it. Let's take our spirit lifters back to when you were 25 years old, and how did what happened at that stage of your life change the trajectory of your life?
Well, when I was 25, that was 2010. I was just over halfway through medical school, and life was really good. I had everything. I was living in a beautiful city. I had a great apartment, and medicine is something that I love so much. So all these things were falling into place, and everything was good. And those days, I used to often visit my parents in Brisbane on weekends. And on one such weekend, it was the 31st of January, 2010. I went to visit them, and I was driving back along a highway, which was a little bit wet because it had been raining that day. And I was just driving along perfectly normally, and I saw maybe something a little bit shiny on the road, maybe something a little bit slick, I don't know. But I came up to it, and it was too late to avoid it. But as soon as I hit it, my car lost control, and it started sliding all over the road. And then it hit an embankment on the side of the road. It came back down, and it started rolling from nose to tail. And it rolled and rolled and rolled, and it was one of the most violent experiences that I had in my life. And once it stopped, I tried to get out of the car. I tried to open the door, and I realized that my fingers weren't obeying my commands anymore. And I tried to move, and I realized that my body's not working. And then I put my hand on my leg, and I realized that I couldn't feel them. So I knew what had happened, and that was it. That within those seconds, my life changed forever. I had a spinal cord injury and lost function of everything below my chest, and also my fingers. Interestingly, I met the firemen who first attended the scene in their fire truck, and they told me that they lost control of the truck as well as they were approaching the scene. So presumably there was something on the road that night that caused it, but it changed my life forever. I spent 7 or 8 months in hospital subsequently, and then it took me about another 4 years to put my life back together, and I came back to medical school after that. I finished med school, and here I am 4 years later.
Unbelievable, Dinesh. And so you were starting and you were already enrolled in med school before this happened, is that correct?
Yeah, I was halfway through.
So did this accident change your motivation for wanting to become a doctor, do you think? Did it change your perspective on the meaning behind it in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I think it made my convictions a lot deeper. I didn't grow up wanting to be a doctor. I didn't grow up wanting to, I never thought about it actually. I thought, all this stuff. I thought medicine was cool, and I thought what doctors did was cool, but I never thought, I want to be a doctor and I want to be doing this. So in fact, my first degree, I studied law first, and I got a degree in law. And when I was a law student, I went through severe depression and anxiety and panic attacks and agoraphobia. So I was afraid to go outside the house for a period of time. It was really that experience and my interaction with doctors then, and a lot of soul searching that happened during that time, because I think there's a huge physical component and a physiological component to depression and whatever else. And for me, indeed, there was an underlying cause medically, but also I think it's there's a philosophical contribution to it, where it's a time where you have to do a bit of soul searching and find yourself again, or find yourself for the first time, as it were, for me. And that's how I ended up thinking that medicine would be a really cool thing to do, because when I was going through that period, I realized that when you're in your own head, and when you're going through all these things, your vision of the world and the world around you change, because the world is really a reflection of our soul, right? It's what we think. And my world was a very dark place at the time. But after I got through that period, my world was very different. It was bright, it was sharp, it was happy, it was great. And my mom says that when you help someone, you may not change the world, but you'll change the world for them. And that was really a powerful thing for me. And that's why I decided to become a doctor, because I probably looked terrible this morning because I worked a night shift last night, and I was working in the kids' emergency department that we have. And I was able to help a child and their parent with not a very big medical issue. It was a fairly straightforward thing to figure out, but that moment, they were so happy and they were so thankful, and we were all very grateful for the opportunity that we had. And that's what it's all about. It's just those single connections that you make.
That's incredible.
After I had the spinal cord injury, I saw that within myself, when my interactions with doctors were variable. I had some incredible ones that I remember to this day, those very words and those very conversations, but I also had some terrible ones that, people that told me that I can't be a doctor anymore, so that experience made my convictions stronger about wanting to continue pursuing what I did. It's a very long answer.
No, that's incredible. What I think would be great for spirit lifters, Dinesh, is because there seems to be two phases here. One where before, when you were studying law and doing, a whole different thing with your life at that time, there were certain, I guess, uncertainties, anxieties, like feeling depressed, like you're relevant, and not knowing what your soul really wanted in this life, what it really desired, and then you found that like spark through wanting to go into medicine, and then you have your accident, and then there's a lot of new new type of life, new uncertainty, and then feeling inspired again. So I think, how do you think that the way that you saw life and then felt reinvigorated with this inspiration after you started to come out from the accident was stronger than the motivation that you had before going into medicine? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Yep. And I think, see, I think at a baseline from my previous experience, I already had a passion for medicine. And, the trick to life, I think, is to find, for all of us, is to find that passion, whatever it may be, whatever it may be. Because when you find that, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like something that's, it's just your craft that you do every day, or it's your it's your passion. So that was always there, but certainly afterwards there were a lot of additional reasons that strengthened my resolve. And there was a lot of time that I spent in a hospital bed, and there was a lot of time that I spent staring into a ceiling. There's a lot of time, and that really gave me time to reinforce my reasons for doing it and build extra things on it. So yeah, I think you're right. There were definitely two phases.
But did you feel, were sort of feeling overwhelmed by your new physical state of being lead you down, just feeling like, I don't know where I'm going to go with this, like, did it just lead you down a path that was like, I just don't know if my life has any more meaning, if I will even have a life that can add something to this world? Like where was kind of the moment in that whole period where it was like, you know what? I am who I am. It doesn't change me, Dinesh, as what's in here, what's in what I feel inside of here, what's in my heart. It doesn't change that. I am who I am, and I'm like, I love that. I am accepting of that, despite my physical impediment. When did that moment come to you?
Yeah. It's funny because I'll admit I'm a pretty vain guy. So I always like to buy good clothes. I always like to do my hair well, whatever else, and I always try to take pride in those external things. So suddenly being in this state was a very big hit from that perspective as well. I was like, geez, coming into terms with the physical identity. And it's funny, I recently met someone who had a spinal cord injury as well. And they were telling me that they didn't look in the mirror for months and months and months. And then I realized that I didn't either. Actually, I didn't look in the mirror for about 2 years, year and a half to 2 years. So fascinating, isn't it? But having said that, and I've spoken about this a couple of times, I read about this concept called alive time and dead time. And I think it was, I can't remember the book I read it in, might have been Ryan Holiday. But essentially the book talked about alive time and dead time. And it gave an example where Malcolm X, and it was saying that, Malcolm X had a very different past, and he ended up in jail. And in jail, he was a prisoner. His physical territory was limited, and you're a prisoner. And over that period of time when he was in jail, he ended up saying that it's where he was most free, because it's where his mind was free. It's where he read a lot, and it's where he grew and changed into who he was. So the concept of this alive time and dead time was that when you have some of these events where you're plunged into some dark depths where there might be no escape, you have two choices. One is to think that, you know what, I'm screwed, this time is nothing and I just have to wait it out. The other thing you can do is to look at it as an opportunity and try to use that time to do something productive. And that's what I tried to do over a period of time as well. And I took this time to really reflect on myself as a person. And I thought, like, you know what, I want to come out of this. Like another story that I really enjoyed that time was The Count of Monte Cristo, where, you know, although I wasn't motivated by revenge, but I just thought, you know, this is a time where I just want to become better than I was as a person. I want to become stronger emotionally. I want to become, you know, I want to develop my integrity. I want to develop all these values. I want to become more disciplined and this and that. So I used that time to read a lot of books about all these different things. I thought about what my values are, what sort of principles I want to live by. And I spent months and months and months just thinking, all right, this is who I'm going to be, and I'm going to be better than I ever am. And I used that time to reinvent myself as a person. And there are certain things that are very, I think the essence of me is probably the same, but the principles are very different to what I was before the accident. So I reinvented myself that way. And I really tried to become a better person through that time. And I think that helped me come out of this and face the world again, because for the longest time I didn't want to face the world and I didn't want to wander out. But doing all those things to making that alive time instead of dead time really helped.
Dinesh, that's just really an incredible way that you explored these, let's say, navigated these waters, especially during that time. And I think that's the crux of what I think our spirit lifters would really love to know, is just like, how can somebody who went through such an arduous, such a challenging time with their body. I mean, I've had, you know, broken ribs before and sprained ankles, and I'm a baby, really. I just like drive my wife crazy, and I just can't stand more than 1 minute, you know, like having to deal with the physical ailment, you know, like, so I feel like just nowhere, like I feel very unsuperman-y in a way. I don't know how to find that expression, but what I want to get at regarding this is that how just is it something that you're born with, that you feel that inside of you, that like, I'm going to look at life in this way and get through the situation with a certain attitude, certain perspective? Is this something you can learn, or is this something innate, or where do you think that comes from?
It's a choice, right? It's a choice. Because I think that's one of the things that we all have that no one can take away, regardless of what our situation is choosing how we feel about something. You know, like we talked about the psychological challenges that I had before medical school when I was studying law, and at that point I was a prisoner in my mind, and you know, I was stuck in there. I was scared to go outside the house, and I was having panic attacks, thinking all these things, and you know, like and that was really, really hard. Like it was really hard, and I had no insight in how to get that out. But later, like I made a choice to see life differently. Later, like I choose every day. I choose to see the good in my life. I choose to be grateful for the things that I have, And you know what? Life is amazing. I live in this amazing place. I get to see the beach every day. I get to do this job that I love. I get to, it doesn't get much better than that. So it's a choice. It's a choice about how you go through the hard things. It's a choice about how you go through life. We have the ability to make small things big or big things small, or see big things as small things, or see small things as big things. Like we have the choice to process our experiences and what we see any way we want. And I think by training yourself and learning how to see things differently and how to put different value on something, I think that changes your whole world.
That's incredible. So yeah, a lot of these circumstances come down, or again, like what life is. I mean, choice, perception of your situation, and what you choose to do with that. You know, I mean, I don't know if this is the space right now to talk about free will or determinism or anything like that, but at the same time, it is important what you're saying, because no matter your circumstance, I mean, however we choose to see what we're going through, you know, just really depends on what we're willing to engage that part of our essence into, to see through those eyes of perception, right? I mean, and just look at what we're going through in 2020. I mean, like, being in lockdown
Crazy.
Can be a beautiful thing, or it can be it can be a prison. So I mean, I just think it's incredible that you just have created, the way I see it, you know, just a life for yourself that is just tremendous. It really is. I mean, you went through something very difficult. You help people in your job on a daily basis, and you live in paradise. So, I mean, man, how can you get better than that? You know?
I know. That's right.
And Dinesh, I'm interested as well to know, how do you see challenges for people who are disabled to get into certain medical job positions, and how is that particular story a challenge for you at a certain time when you're going to that? Can you speak to that, please?
See, this is and that's a really important topic. I was just talking to some colleagues overnight about how terrible we are as doctors about looking after each other. You know, we're just we look after our patients, but we are just terrible at looking after each other. And there's been so much. There's been so many doctors that end their lives and go through these hard things because of that. And I think when you talk about your career with having a disability as well, I experienced some of the very same things. Even though we look after all these people with different types of disabilities, medicine itself is very reluctant, or at least was, to have people going through those experiences in the profession itself. For me, I had a really supportive medical school, but getting the job was challenging. And then, you know, some parts of my career subsequently were challenging as well. And that was purely due to my different physical state. You know, my grades were good. My performance reports are almost, actually are universally good. In my hospital, I won Junior Doctor of the Year award in my second year out. And I try to do a really good job every day. But none of those things matter sometimes when you have a spinal cord injury, because that's the first thing that people see, not your clinical ability, not your thing. It's the first thing that people see. And it's really been some of my medical seniors that have seen it that way. Many haven't, but many have. The funny thing is, not a single patient has been concerned. Every single one of my interactions with the patients, it's been an honor, and it's been such a pleasure being a part of these people's journeys, and they've always been grateful, and we've just had a great relationship as a doctor and patient. So it's funny.
That's what matters the most.
Exactly. That's what matters the most. And around the world, I think that there are challenges for people with disabilities wanting to enter the medical profession. I've had some discussions with colleagues in India who are battling these issues. The United States were taking a huge amount of steps to support people with disability wanting to go into medicine, and as was the UK. And Australia is starting to make some progress as well. So it's an interesting thing. But I think it's important to have people with lived experiences becoming doctors, because you need to imagine for your profession to have a deep understanding of the very conditions that you deal with every day. I think that's extremely valuable. I also think that the medical profession have been thought leaders in so many different topics over time. And to show that we can create an inclusive profession, that we value diversity in this way, leaves very little excuse for other industries and other professions not to do that. So it has a flow-on effect. So I think it's really important that we take this leadership position now, but it hasn't been without challenges.
Part of me just can't understand that, I just looking from the outside, why, especially in the medical field, why would there be any sort, if you're willing, whoever, you went through an injury that was just tough, that's not an easy thing to come out the other side the way you have, honestly. And then doing what you do, I'm blown away, but why would there be any obstacles into, if you're willing to do what you're wanting to do and you show that you can, why would there be any obstacles? I just can't wrap my head around that. I would think that, okay, he works hard, he shows that he can do this, he has proved himself time and time again. Why would there be any stigma around that? I can't understand that.
I think it's perceptions, right? And a lot of this stuff is perceptions. Mm-hmm. I recently visited a social enterprise, and it's a huge factory that manufactures a lot of high quality goods, and it's all run by people with various physical conditions. So there are people with hearing impairments, and there are people with various motor impairments, and I was talking to the leaders of this organization. They said, look, we don't want to, we just work on being a business and selling a good product. And then we make the best product that we can, and they do. And then we, secondarily, the fact that we have a inclusive workforce is a secondary thing. But what they were saying is that, if you say that this is a social enterprise where everything's built by people with disabilities, then the perception automatically changes, where they think that this must be a subpar product, but it's not. And I think that's a really good lesson for society, in that we need to flip that script and start thinking about people's abilities and the quality of what they can do, rather than thinking the other way around, saying, oh wait, this person's different, so the quality of what they can do must be less.
That drives me crazy, that whole idea that people think that way. And if I saw something like that going on, around me, I would call it out immediately. That's
what we need. We need people to do that. Exactly.
No, seriously. There has to be, yes, inclusiveness, and just, I especially am thinking, and there's just been a lot of conversation around this, especially this year, that 2020 is it's teaching us as humans to have more empathy. I think empathy is the word as far as the human behavioral way of just something that was really lost for so long, really has to, I think, is so much more in the forefront now, and for many different reasons. I mean, yes, we're at home, we can reflect, we can be more introspective, we're having different dynamics, routines than before, etc. But there is a lot of way in which, when we're not with each other, we also step back and have a more bird's eye view and look down and say, okay, well, how have we been with each other all this time? Have we been good? Have we been bad? How have we been? And so it can put into light more perspective of how we really see each other. And I hear over and over again in different conversations that empathy, we have to have empathy to make this world actually go somewhere positive, from now on. I don't know.
I totally agree. It's funny because, we're more connected than ever in certain ways with the age of social media and text messaging and whatever else. But I think we're also more alone than ever as well, because people feel more alone. But I think unity is so important, and togetherness is so important. And I think we shouldn't see that as this soft, weak thing or concept. It's not. It's strength, and it's power, and it's what will drive us forward. Like you said, even when you think about those gangster movies that people love to watch, one of the concepts that they look to is that all these people stick together, and there's that, the honor among thieves. So it's unity that we look to, and I think as humanity we need to look to that. Life is about, you get so much fulfillment from being there for people and helping each other through. I think that's really, really valuable, and today it's more important than ever. And you see contrasting behaviors in humans, and I think survival instincts sometimes kick in, and you see things like people hoarding groceries and doing all these things. And I'm not blaming anyone, but I think that's just a survival instinct. But then you see the other side of the continuum as well, where people are coming together. Like we saw the story of that elderly gentleman in the United Kingdom that was trying to raise money for their National Health Service.
Yeah.
So you see both sides of things, and I think we have to aspire to try and help each other out. I think that's heroism. That's strength, and that's those are all those amazing qualities, and I think we all need to aspire to be a hero at this time.
And that, would you agree, that starts with you, the person, rather than you looking for something to make you the hero? I mean, I think your story's about that,
Well, it doesn't take much for us to do that. It's about little acts. You don't need to go and collect $50 million for something, or you don't need to do that. It's about dropping off some groceries for your neighbor, or helping that person across the street, or just checking in on something and asking if they're okay. It's things like that. That's what matters today more than ever. And I think if each of us just tried to do one little thing like that all the time, I think we're all surprised at how much more happiness we'll add to our lives.
And maybe it's just that, maybe it's just that people, not all people, but I don't want to generalize, but some people who, I don't know, because like going back to what you mentioned about passion, I think even people just get get stuck in the conundrum of like, well, okay, well, the passion must be this little thing I got to scratch and it'll fall in my hand and it's going to magically appear. I think people have a hard time with that. Like, well, how do I know what my passion is? How can I find it? Do I have to search for it? I think the fact that we get so consumed in our own game sometimes that is consequentially bringing us down and not connecting enough with others, right? In a selfless way, in an empathetic way, that I think we really find our, let's say, meaning. It doesn't have to be a particular thing. Okay, here's the accountant, here's the doctor, I think the selfless giving and connection with people makes you discover yourself in a certain way. Do you find that?
Yeah. And we really do get caught up in the minutiae of life, and it's so easy to lose perspective. One of the things we see, like you can see it on the road sometimes. People get so impatient, people try to cut each other off, and people do this and that. But at the end of it, you might have gained like 15 seconds in your journey by making someone else sad or disappointed or angry, and making yourself angry as well. Whereas, if you let someone in, you might make the traffic go faster. You feel good, they feel good. But yeah, you just get so caught up in those little things that you think are so important for you to get ahead. You just forget what's really important. I think you just need to keep the big picture in mind.
Sure. And again, like kind of in line with what you're saying a little bit, is like, it doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world for you to move the ball forward in that particular direction of what you're saying. Is it can be, like you said, like helping out the groceries for your neighbor, or it can just giving, whatever to somebody else, saying, hey, I'm thinking about you today. Hope you're doing well. It's the small things that create and perpetuate this bigger ball and way of being happy, I guess. Not that should be the ultimate goal, is just being, I think, happy. I mean, I think it's a result of something of the way you live your life every day. It's just like just say,
Yeah, sorry, man. I was. It goes back to what they were saying that my mom loves, because you don't have to change the world, but you just can change the world for someone, at least for a few minutes a day.
Exactly.
And some of the most special and connected and fulfilling moments that I've had in my job is not the medical care that I'm able to help someone with. It's just been bringing them a cup of tea and spending 5 minutes talking to them about how they feel. And that's been more meaningful than anything,
How does your job, and staying in that same light, how does your job bring you like meaning in a certain way of knowing yourself more, Dinesh? How does you going to the hospital every day really help you understand more about who you are, and like what are let's say reason of being here all together in this place in the middle of nowhere in the universe really mean? What does that mean to you?
I think the rawest, most the most raw thing, the most visceral thing that I learn, and I repeatedly learn every single day, is that life is it's fleeting, it's fragile, it's unpredictable, it's you just don't know. And all the time I see people that come in that have suddenly lost a loved one, a fatal car crash, some sort of trauma, a person that might have had a fatal heart attack that evening, a person that you find cancer in, that may be terminal suddenly. And, that the person who might have tragically passed away that day, they're not going to wake up that morning thinking, this is going to be my last day on earth. But you wonder, you sometimes sit there and think, I wonder what you'd do if you knew that this was going to be your last day. Would you have lived your day differently? And their loved ones are there sometimes too. I wonder, if you knew that it was that would for your loved one that day, would you have treated them differently? Did you have a fight that day? How did you talk to each other? Did you hug each other? And I think about that all the time. And it really grounds me. It really grounds me in this world, and that you have to seize every single day. You have to seize every single one, because you just don't know.
That's incredible, Dinesh. I think that's just something I hope that most of us can experience, or at least have that revelation in our mind somewhere and in our heart, that just to put in perspective the fragility, the beauty, the gift it is being alive, and just have a perspective about that, so that it can help us live more fully and share and love with everyone around us, and including strangers. Dinesh, just as a final question for spear lifters, what would be your advice that they can take away with, just to live fearlessly more than anything, right? I think we can love more if we feel that fearlessness in our heart. Not fearless well, I'm not scared of lions or spiders, but you might be, but I'm saying fearless, with just that attitude of that positive mental, PMA, positive mental attitude, right? Just that way of just embracing these seconds that we have on this planet, these minutes, these days, these years, and just make the most of it. What would be your final word?
Oh man, I absolutely agree. And it's also not about being fearless, and it's sometimes okay to be scared, but be courageous. That's what Nelson Mandela said. Be courageous, overcome your fear. You might be scared about a bunch of things. I was scared to come back to medical school because I thought, how would people see me? Will I pass? Will I do this? Will I do that? I had to overcome that. And I think we have to be courageous in life. I think, if you're courageous, if you seize the day, and if you do all these things, the things that you're going to remember, it's not that extra dollar that you saved. It's not spending, it's not the promotion that you got at work. It's not going to be all those things that you think are important. It's going to be the memories that you had with your loved ones. It's going to be, that time you played around on the beach, or it's going to be the memories that you created for yourself. It's going to be what people remember about you. And it's about how you make them feel, isn't it? Those are the really special things. It's about the experiences, and it's about the connections. Those are actually the things that you can remember last minute. And it's what people are going to remember about you. So be courageous and seize the day. As cliche as that sounds, seize the day.
I completely agree, and that's a great note to end on. And be courageous, seize the day. And ahead of Nelson Mandela's birthday tomorrow, actually, it's great to
wow, I didn't even realize.
Yeah, I know. What timing, right? So, I mean, it's just an incredible thing to just ponder on, and just go ahead and just take charge of this day in the most beautiful, loving way that we can. So, Dinesh, thank you so much for being on this episode of Spear Lift, and it was an honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Devin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dinesh. And Spear Lifters, please let us know your comments in the description below. And we wish you all, an excellent day. Take care.